What if the moment that nearly breaks you becomes the one that actually transforms you? In today's episode, I sit down with Danielle Smith, a journalist, recovery advocate, and host of Hope Comes to Visit, to explore how grief, addiction, and vulnerability can lead us not to our end, but to our most powerful beginning. If you've ever felt like you couldn't go on, this conversation is the reminder that you absolutely can. And through hope and resilience, a better life is waiting for you on the other side. Let's dive in. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. I'm Dan Peters, psychologist and executive leadership coach. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be better versions of ourselves and have a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today's show, I'm excited to be talking with Danielle Elliott Smith. Danielle is a former award-winning TV journalist, speaker, author, and the voice behind the new podcast, Hope Comes to Visit. After walking through her own journey of high-functioning alcoholism, traumatic grief, and profound reinvention, Danielle now uses her voice to create space for resilience, truth, and transformation. She's the founder of Redefining Sober, a coaching platform helping women reimagine their relationship with alcohol without shame, and co-creator of Sovereign Collective, a personal growth community centered around authenticity, empowerment, and healing. Danielle lives in St. Louis with her fiance and will be spending the fall between Ole Miss and Tennessee visiting her daughter and son for big-time SEC football. Fun, fun, fun. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. It is so exciting to be on this side of the camera and the microphone joining you.
I agree, and I've been looking forward to that. Listeners, Danielle and I had a great conversation on her show, episode number 7 or 8. I think
Yes.
it's 7 or 8, which I just listened to before this show, and really enjoyed that meaningful conversation and primed me for us to keep going where we left off. And now, of course, I get to ask you the questions this time.
Yeah,
So
you get to lead
yes,
the conversation this time.
I do. So, you, as I have been listening to all your podcasts, I guess where to start is you have been so putting yourself out there. Your story, your journey, just really opened, and I'm wondering how that process has been for you, and what was the ramp up to that? Because I know there's so many people that it's hard to do that, and we feel we're so vulnerable, and then there's the like, what will people think about us? And yet the stories of difficulty, of loss, of grief, of challenges, and then of course of new beginnings is so inspiring. So take that where you will. Like, how is this?
First of all, I love it. So storytelling is in my blood in some capacity or another, whether it's going all the way back to reporting. But for me, the way we connect with other people is through shared experience. And I know that I, through my most traumatic pieces of my journey over the last handful of years, the way I have felt most seen is hearing my story coming out of someone else's mouth and thinking, oh, wait, that's not a Danielle, that's an us. That's a we.
Mm-hmm.
This is a shared experience. This is something that I have not gone through alone. I don't have to shoulder this entirely by myself. And my hope with starting the podcast, with doing this, with interviewing people, is truly that people will hear someone else speaking and will think, there it is, that there's an us. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not alone. And that there will be a little piece of inspiration in every story that someone hears that will make them feel they can keep going. They can get through this. They can do something that they weren't sure they could keep doing.
Mm. And the name of the show, which you have shared, you shared when we spoke, and you've shared on other episodes too, is an exact. I mean, to talk about the origin of the name of the show, and then we'll talk about hope and loss of hope and regaining hope. But just the story of this name is
Okay.
emblematic of everything that you just said.
Right. So I'm now just over 6 years sober. When I decided to finally give in and get the help that I needed. I was married at the time. My ex-husband is a very good friend of mine. I have 2 children. My husband then said, "Kid, I'm not even mad at you anymore. You need help. You are not okay. You are sick. I am worried about the mother of my children. I have found a place for you to go and get help," which was, I'm in St. Louis now. It was treatment in Florida, but you can go and take care of yourself, mind, body, soul. It is what you need. I cannot force you to go. But this will be the thing that moves you forward. If you decide not to go, then I will take the kids and I will move in with my parents. And that same day, there was a text between my kids that said, "Too bad mom loves wine more than she loves us."
Mm,
And thank God my kids know now that even then it wasn't that I loved wine more than them. It's that I was sick and that I truly wanted to stop drinking more than they wanted me to stop drinking. I just didn't know how. So I did go to treatment. And then after 30 days of being in treatment, I came home. But I went back to that area in Florida to celebrate all of my milestones: 30 days and 60 and 90 and 180 and 6 months. And in one of those visits back, I was talking to a gentleman I had become good friends with. And he said, "Danielle, you have no idea what a big deal it is that you come back. Every time you're here, people get to see that staying sober works. You can do this. Every time you're here," I get chills every time I tell a story. He said, "Every time you're here, it's like hope comes to visit."
hmm,
And in that moment, I knew that's the name of the podcast. I had long wanted to do a podcast. But even back in my social media and blogging days when there weren't a lot of women doing podcasts, I was unwilling to choose just one particular lane for a podcast. I wasn't comfortable just saying, "I'm only going to talk family, I'm only going to talk politics, I'm only going to talk lifestyle or hairstyles or women over 30 or women over 40," because I wanted to be able to talk about anything and everything.
hmm
So finding myself in this place where I could talk stories of hope and I could interview people and I could focus on finding a way through and finding the good and interview people and do stories allows me to be in virtually every lane, um,
totally.
and do the interviewing and do the stories and do the things that I love. So it puts me in that place where I want to be, but keeps me in that category of hope where I've always wanted to be. Hope has always been one of my favorite words.
And you described, even though you had the name and the domain,
Mhm.
you weren't ready. You weren't
I was not
ready.
ready.
And you were, it was also at a time of a lot of, well, intermittent hopelessness. And then who am I to talk about hope when I have none?
Well, see, and at that point, I didn't recognize that piece because I was very early. So it was 5 years ago. I was only newly in recovery, and I kept saying, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this." And something just didn't feel right. And I don't know whether or not it was fear that was holding me back. I just didn't feel ready. And I got into a relationship, which many people suggest you do not do early in recovery.
Hmm
But I'm special that way. So I went ahead and did that anyway.
You're not
So,
the
I
first.
was in a
You are not the
relationship with
first yet.
someone who was also in recovery, and, 2 years ago, he relapsed, and, he passed away, and it was gutting to go through that experience, and I found myself grieving in a way that I had never known. I hadn't lost anyone close that way. I had lost grandparents, but I hadn't lost. I mean, my grandmother was 104 when she passed away.
Mm,
So as sad as I was about that experience, I was able to revel in what she had seen and what she had done and who she was. And this was different. This felt like life interrupted. And at the time that he relapsed, he had 2 years. And it felt as though the plans I had been making stopped short. And I found myself thinking, am I done? Have I done everything I'm supposed to do? Am I What am I supposed to do now? And that did put me in a place of profound hopelessness because I had always been a person who could recognize glasses half full. I can see the light. I I need to sit in the hard, but I can see what the light looks like through. And for a period of time, I couldn't see that. And what I recognize now is that I had to be in a place where I felt hopeless in order to be here now to do a podcast that talks about hope. I wasn't equipped to talk about hope when I hadn't experienced hopelessness.
Hmm.
And now I get to see what it looks like on both sides of that journey. And as painful as that was, I wouldn't give up any piece of my journey because it would take away who I am now. And that is a challenging thing to say, right? Because I wouldn't wish what I have been through on anyone, but on this side, there is so much beauty and love and fullness in my life, and without that experience, I wouldn't know what this version of love looks like. I mean, I
Hmm.
have a fiance and he's truly the most incredible human being on the planet. And I now know what it looks like to be fully loved and fully seen and fully treasured, and I hadn't had that experience before. So
Yeah.
without having gone through all of those pieces, including that hopelessness, I
Right.
I wouldn't be me.
It makes me think of, without dark there is no light, and without light there is no dark. Like we have to have the contrasts to discern the difference. And I know from points in my life, some hard and dark times, once one emerges, it does change the way that we see things. And then the trick is, or the challenge is to hold on to it. Because when
Right.
there's emergence, right, that reemergence, and everything just seems like, then you go from um, questioning whether you want to be here to, and I have a quote from you about that, to the absolute joy, ecstasy, all of the words of the newness and the colors and the hope. It's so exhilarating. And then we get back to, okay, our new normal. And then it's easy to lose that, just that intentionality about being so grateful um, for life.
I have long focused on gratitude. It's always been very important to me, and I when you go through profoundly traumatic experiences, you remember there are certain things that stick out, right? There are the people who were so truly there and so truly present. They will always have the most extraordinary place in my heart. But there are also people who find a way to say the most heinous things to you that you think, "Wow, who knew?" And I had part of my recovery for a period of time included 12-step meetings, and in recovery for me and in working with individuals who are seeking to change their relationship with alcohol specifically, I encourage people to do whatever works for them. I don't advocate one specific path of recovery over another, but there were times when I was in meetings and I always talked about my level of gratitude. And um the the partner that I lost, his name was Marty, and when he was in the hospital before he passed away, I had someone say to me, "Oh, how's little Miss Gratitude feeling now?"
Hmm.
And I thought,
Wow.
"Wow, that is
Wow. Cutting.
that's that's cutting, right?" It's very, very cutting, but what it tells me is that there are people who cannot live in a place of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And so they question whether or not I really can.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I learned in early recovery is that I'm not seeking to be happy. I'm seeking to be peaceful. And peaceful leads to happiness because I can't be happy all the time. I don't want to be happy all the time because if I was happy all the time, I wouldn't understand joy. If
Mm-hmm.
happy was my straight normal, joy and ecstasy and exhilaration and rainbows and butterflies wouldn't be extraordinary. They'd be the norm and they wouldn't be this exceptional thing like we're talking about the contrast between dark and light. So, I would like mainly peace to be my norm.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I only get really, really upset if things are extraordinarily hard or I get really excited when things are extraordinarily beautiful. And that to me is the contrast. If I can have peace as my norm, that's what I'm looking for.
I like that. It reminds me of another wise guest who talked very similarly, and her word was contentment. So, peace, contentment, which I do think
Yep,
there's connection there, and
absolutely.
and gosh, it's also it's freeing. Like it feels like I get the spaciousness in my chest just thinking about that of seeking peace, seeking contentment rather than this elusive happiness that
Right.
our society tells us that we should be reaching, and it's like clouds at times. It's a fleeting moment. So I like that peace. I want to go back to the quote where what you said in your recent solo episode, which is there is a thin line between I don't want to live and I don't want to live like this.
It's true, right? And I know this not just from my experience, but also from working regularly with people who are struggling. Alcohol especially or being in a state of addiction, we get exhausted by living us. There is a constant battle within. It is this I don't want to, but I must. We are battling ourselves. And I when I think about that cycle, when I think about I can remember saying to myself, okay, Danielle, you're not gonna drink today. And I would make it through part of the day and I would think, there's one. And I even hear it now when I hear people justify having too much to drink. I didn't eat enough. There must have been something in my drink. I don't know what happened. You and I drank the same thing. Why was I such a mess? We constantly come up with these excuses because we don't want to say, I drank too much. Maybe it wasn't good for me. Maybe I'm not good at it. I don't want to be the person that has to wear this scarlet A that says, I shouldn't drink. I can't drink because it makes us different. And the piece that I didn't want to acknowledge was maybe I shouldn't drink. Because to acknowledge that would be to make me different or to tell me that I shouldn't do something that everybody else seems to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth of the matter is, many, many, many people do not do it well.
Right.
TV tells us, movies tell us, commercials tell us that lots of people do it well. And we treat alcohol like it's a form of self care. We treat alcohol like had a hard day, have a drink. Need to relax, have a drink. Um, but that is it's a myth because it's a depressant. So the more
Mm-hmm.
we drink, the worse we feel. And then we start to think, I can't live like this. And
Right.
then we say out loud, I can't do this. And what we're saying is, I don't want to live like this version of myself. But it sounds like I don't want to live.
Right. And if it can feel that way as
It
well.
certainly can.
Right. Yes. Yes. And
It
I
certainly
think
can.
it's an important distinction for people out there who might be feeling like this is to know that that feeling could have another vantage point that yes, you don't want to live because you're having to live like this. But if you can change that to add like this to it instead of I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore, and then reach out,
And it's
do the
possible to make it
courageous
easy.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
It it's it is it feels there are times when it feels impossible. It feels like I can't do this.
Mhm.
But we can.
Mhm.
We can't it's I won't tell you it's easy because
Mhm.
there were days where it felt easier than others, and there were days that it felt impossible. In that episode you just referenced, the clip off the top is the first day I was in treatment. I
Mhm.
recorded myself on camera every day for 30 days because I wanted to be able to go and look back, and I'll be honest with you, I have not looked at all 30 days because it's at this stage, 6 years out,
Mhm.
nearly 2,500 days away, and it's still too physically painful for me to see myself like that.
Yeah.
And because it is the lack of control and it is the sad. And when you talk about the I don't want to live and I don't want to live like this. I know that if I had not stopped drinking, I wouldn't be
Mhm.
here. And I don't say that in I definitely would have killed myself.
Mhm.
I say it in I can very well picture having I just can't do this moment that would have included somebody put me to sleep
Right.
and combined medications that I shouldn't be combining. And when you think about the number of was it an overdose? Was it an accidental overdose? Those happen in those moments. Those
Yeah.
happen in the dark of I just want to go to sleep.
Mhm.
I just I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because you
Mhm.
so wish that there would have been a phone call made.
Right.
And that's where I try to encourage people to call someone.
And when we think about um, taking one's life, one of the sayings is, it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And this isn't to minimize the magnitude of the
Absolutely.
problem. And you are living proof of the extremely difficult and gut wrenching experience, but also the permanent or the temporary nature once you sought help. Like
And
there was another solution.
well, and the number of times that I have said to my kids because I have known people who have lost children. I have known people who have had suicide affect someone in their family, and it always I always find myself reaching out to my kids and saying, "Allow me to be a mom," right? I know both
Mhm.
of them will say, "I know, mom, I know." And I say, "Just humor me," right? Because there are going to be times in life where whatever is painful feels like it's blocking out the sun.
Mhm.
And having the ability to call someone or knowing having the understanding somewhere back here that that you can that that it is temporary, that you can make it through. It may not feel like it, and it's
Mhm.
going to hurt, and it's going to be painful, but it is temporary, and gosh, your spirit is so much stronger than you give yourself credit for being.
Mhm. It was really courageous for you to include the audio of your first day, um, and just your honest. Of course, you're honest, you're raw, but then to put it in the shows where you are. And I have a feeling you're getting closer and closer to looking at the 30 days. Um, I understand why you wouldn't want to do that, and I just have a sense that as you are walking through this process by now teaching this process, I mean, teaching in the sense of being
Working with.
a platform
Yeah.
for recovery. I see your own both humility and confidence at the same time, just coming together.
Thank you. That's very kind. You know, when first I first put it out there that I was sober, about 6 months, and I had been living very publicly in that mom blogging, lifestyle blogging space for a number of years, but most people didn't know because I was pretty good at hiding it. There were a couple people close to me that knew, but I mean, I even went to a place treatment where I was allowed to take my phone and my computer, so I continued to work while I was gone. And so I was a bit more quiet than I had been, but I put it out there because I thought there are other people doing what I'm doing. There are other people hiding. There
Hmm.
are other people. Someone has said to them, "Why are you always having 3 glasses of wine when we go to dinner?" And their response is the same that mine was. Last time I checked, I turned 21 a very long time ago, so leave me alone. But because they felt shamed, instead of not having that 3rd glass, they started at home first, but
Hmm.
just didn't let anyone know. And the second you start to hide, that's where your slippery slope begins, right? And I know now from working in this world, families would say to me, we went into their car and there were 35 shot bottles underneath the seat. Like, we are professionals at hiding. And you can no longer shock me with the amount that someone drinks or with someone's blood alcohol. I would be in the hospital and talking to doctors, and they would say someone's blood alcohol was nearly zero point 0.5. Not point like zero point zero 0.08 is legal. Zero point 0.5 is half of the blood in your system is alcohol, right?
Hmm.
And how in the world is that person living? Because everybody's tolerance is different. There is no standard, right?
Hmm.
And it's because we're sick, right? And so I have a zero judgment policy. You can't shock me, you can't surprise me, and I'm never gonna look at someone and say, "Wow, you're really, really bad." I'm
Hmm.
gonna say, "How can I help?
Right.
What would you
Right.
like to change? What would you like to be different?" And so when I first put it out there and I said, "This is how I feel. This is how I was behaving. This is how my family was with me." I hoped that maybe there was one person who would read it and think, "Wow, that's me." What I was surprised by were the number of people who reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, Danielle, you described my best friend, my cousin, my sister, my husband. I didn't know that that's how they felt. I'm over
Right.
here mad at them. I didn't know that's how they felt on the inside."
Hmm.
And then I had other friends who said, "Wow, I started asking myself some of the questions that you wished you asked yourself. Like, can I stop treating it like self care? Can I start asking myself if I actually want a drink?"
Hmm.
And I drink 2/3 less than I used to drink 3 months ago
Hmm.
because I stopped treating it like self care. And I thought, well, there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
If we treat each other with compassion, there's
Hmm.
got to be something different that we can do.
There's, to your point, there's so many value judgments we make against people, and make like willful attributions as opposed to having the empathy and trying to get a little space to think what's behind it. So,
Mhm.
the classic one in our culture for years has been ADHD. Like, people with ADHD are thought to have less willpower, like
Right.
lazy, as opposed to looking at, well, there are some, and again, this is an oversimplification, but there are some neurobiological reasons that it's harder to initiate an action and sustain an action in some of these cases. With addiction, what gets focused on is the behavior, understandably, that impacts people around them. but then there's a value judgment often about those people of why do they drink so much? Why do they use? Why don't they just stop? When
Mhm.
you said, um, you know, there's lots of different stuff that I have experienced and been through. And just one example is years ago, traveling in Europe in grad school days with my brother. It was the only time I really smoked cigarettes because it just was kind of a paired stimulus in Europe where you have a
Right.
drink and you have a cigarette and everyone's doing it.
Yeah. It's
And
definitely everywhere.
yeah. And I was grateful that I didn't like it. I mean, it's just like I didn't like it. I did it, but
Oh,
I didn't like it. I came back. I still had the stimulus response for a few weeks, and then it was like done.
right.
And I was like, I've been blessed because there are so many people that I know who, you have one and you just keep having them because
Yep.
there's that connection, that addiction. And so I guess this is just a message to say that yes, addiction is very damaging. And yes, there are things that can be done about it, but also it's a bit of the lottery about where your genes, your family upbringing, the impact, and how easy it is for it to stick versus not, depending on your makeup.
You bring up such a good point because I think that there's one of my goals as a parent was to raise curious children, right? So instead of judgment based, I wanted them to ask questions. And so I have like my fiance is ADHD. And so we'll be talking sometimes and then the next thing I see is this.
Hmm.
And he explained to me because our communication is so good that he is stellar at listening while he's doing something on his phone. It increases and he picks up his phone when he needs to lock in and listen.
Hmm.
And it has helped me to understand other people I have known in my past who I instantly thought, how rude.
Right.
We're talking and you picked up your phone to do something else. But it's helped me to understand because my ADHD does not manifest that way, right? And it's helped me to understand myself better. And now I I as a 52-year-old woman, I am finally at a place where ask. I ask
Hmm.
questions. I try so hard not to judge any type of behavior, but to be insatiably curious
Hmm.
about anything anyone says or does because I have no idea where they're coming from unless I
Totally.
ask.
Totally. And a parent sidebar here that for years, one of the areas of specialty that I have worked with for decades is ADHD, and this is before cell phones, even, and all the technology. The main thinking is when you do your homework, it needs to be in a quiet space with no distractions. And then all of these kids, especially those with ADHD, kids and teenagers, they have music on, then they have the TV or a movie on. They might have a couple, when computers came, screens open. Now, granted, this is, it can be much too much.
Right.
However, these kids would say consistently, the only way I can concentrate is if my parts of my brain are occupied with other things and I can concentrate better. And everyone's like, no, 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 no. Well, sure enough, the research shows that that is true. Now, there is overload, but just to your point, those of us who know our brain, like we want to encourage everyone to have self knowledge and know their brain and know what works for them. And there is the sweet spot where your brain is occupied enough if you have this kind of brain, but you still can actually focus on your task.
See, it's interesting because my fiance is brilliant. And so he works for Mastercard and he is high up in terms of like the technology side and his brain is always always going. And he said he'll be in meetings sometimes. And when he really needs to lock in on something that's extremely technical, he'll pick up his phone and someone who doesn't know him will inevitably say, I mean, you're not even paying attention. And he'll be able to like recite back exactly what has just been said in the entire room. And
Hmm.
people are always blown away. I can't do that. If I start locking in on something else, I'm done. Like
Hmm.
I split. I pay attention, but I think that's it's a little bit of the reporter in me, right? It's a little bit of the empath in me that I want eye contact. I'm watching you because I'm paying attention to every piece of you. I'm paying attention to always when I'm speaking, if I'm on stage speaking, I know the one person in the room who has turned their back on me or who is looking down, who appears to not be paying attention. I'm locked in on everybody. I know the moment I lose everybody. I
Hmm.
know when people are nodding or smiling or coming along with me, or if I've completely lost them. And so I've always been face to face, eye to eye. So it's just a totally different way of engaging.
Something you just talked about being an empath, and something you had said on one of your podcasts about being an empath, it was that part of your hiding is you didn't want people to feel your sadness. Um, and that's an interest. So as a fellow empath, I relate. And I think what's interesting about, so I want to acknowledge that and validate that, and also make the comment that as empaths, we also assume everyone feels everyone else's emotions the same way we do, when in fact, that is not true.
Okay, I'm going to sit with that for a second because I've never thought about that. But you're right. And I think that that's probably why I find the human race so confusing,
Yes.
because I don't understand why people behave the way they do because I assume that you must be feeling it the way I'm feeling it. Therefore, how could you treat someone that way?
Right.
Um, but it's one of the reasons that I was not adept at being a hard news reporter. I could do it, but I wanted to cry with you, and we're not supposed to do that, right? We're not supposed to. I mean, we've become far more fluid about it, far more. I think 9/11 opened the doors to reporters and anchors actually being allowed to show more emotion, but the Edward R. Murrows of the world were supposed to just the Cronkites were just the facts, ma'am,
Right.
right?
Just the facts.
And I can think about so many stories that I did early on where all I wanted to do was hug the person I was talking to.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I did. And now at my age, I know that I just get to be me, and I'm allowed to just say, okay, and be present with people. And that's the beauty of getting to do the podcast that I do now is I can sit with people and we can have a conversation. And there aren't the rules that I was
Right.
bound by in journalism, not that I would ever be inappropriate per se, but I
Right.
just it's it's not that I have to stick to I don't have
Yeah.
to reserve any emotion and only give me the facts, and I'm not supposed to react whatsoever to anything you're telling me.
Yeah. My response to that, as someone who's very much has had a parallel journey in many respects, is like screw the rules. And I think as we get older, I'm only a few years older than you. Um, this is the journey towards authenticity that I know that I am very much on, and that I am very much focused in all of my work with my clients on. And it's where this train that you are on is be you. Like, be our authentic selves. Have the and one of your guests, actually, I wrote it down. Let's see, right here, Wendy Faith.
I was
Dare
gonna
to
say, I know you're
find,
gonna say
right?
Wendy.
Dare to find who I really am. And
Right?
this is for all of us that, yes, and I'm not talking about ethics, right? Like,
Mhm.
you as a journalist, you have ethics. Me
Right.
as a psychologist and a coach, and you as a
Ethics.
coach, we have ethics. And we have this, do what is right. We're not talking about that. We're
Correct.
talking about the bullshit rules that tell us how we're supposed to be, what we're not supposed to do, how we're supposed to be professional. And what I think is so interesting about this too is one of the things that defined Oprah, one of the most incredible interviewers and relationship people of all time, it was her ability to do exactly what you did in your interviews, which is to show emotion, to cry through empathy with a guest because it's real and it's human, and we need this more than ever. And the other thing that you said, which is really making me think, is, this assumption, we only know what we know, right? So if we grow up with burnt toast, we have no idea there's any other kind of toast until we go to a friend's house and a parent does not give us burnt toast. Like, whoa, I didn't know it comes this way. So when you are an empath, or for those listening, other words, a highly sensitive person, an HSP, where you really feel other people's emotions. And it's not that you can read minds, but there's a strong intuition that you have a sense of what's going on. Many people can see social dynamics unfolding. That was always me in a room. Like, does anybody see this train wreck happening? And like, no one's looking around except I'm like trying to get in the way of this train wreck. And then you get into trouble because no one else knows what you're doing. All this is to say is there are a lot of people in the world who aren't like that. And there's extremes, of course, that it's clear from their personality types that they do not have empathy. But there's a lot of people in the middle. And I know that there were several instances in my life when I was like, I just want to be one of them. I just want to be one of those people that does not feel everything when I walk into a room. And then, as we get older, we hopefully develop some armor, some cloak every once in a while, or we just have more awareness and boundaries that we know, like, okay, just because I'm feeling it doesn't mean I need to do anything about it. It's like, it's complicated.
Well, and I think that part of that is, I know that doing the type of work that I've done for these last years, even being a reporter and then working with people who are struggling with substance use, there were times that I had to unburden myself, even if I was doing it on my own, because I carry it with me. I, and I can't pour from an empty cup. And so I know that it's imperative that I find ways to take care of myself, because that's that type of work, the type of work you do, constantly working with other people who are struggling in some capacity, means that we're taking on everyone else's heartache and struggles and grief and challenges and frustrations. And I carry them with me. I don't simply say, oh my gosh, that person is really grieving. I grieve with them. And I think that that's one of the things that makes, like, when I think about my grieving journey, right? And what I learned about grief, I got myself a grief therapist. And I will tell you right now, one of the reasons that I am okay, this within the next 2 weeks, we're gonna hit the 2-year milestone of when we lost Marty. And when I say okay, I mean, not that I don't ever get hit sideways, but that I am not actively struggling to get out of bed every day, is because I dove in to my grief headfirst. And I said, what do I need to do so that I can be okay, so that I can be a functioning human being, and I can choose to live. And one of the things I did was get a grief therapist. And she said, Danielle, you are going to, in addition to grieving the loss of someone, on top of that, your entire life is being rearranged. Everyone you know is being put in one of three buckets: people who are going to show up for you, people who are going to disappear entirely, or people who are going to show up in one capacity or another and they're going to try. The people who are trying are going to say something. Sometimes they're going to bring a meal, or they're going to offer to do something, or they might say, how are you doing? And then not really listen because they didn't really want to know. The whole thing made them feel awkward. The problem with all three of those groups is that the people you thought you were going to count on, some of them are gone entirely. And some of the people who are showing up for you are people you haven't talked to in years. It's because our capacity despite the fact that grief is the one universal experience we have. It is the only thing we are all going to go through without a doubt. We're not all going to get married or have kids or find the job of our dreams or live in the city we want to live in, but every single one of us is going to lose someone we love fundamentally. And yet it is the thing we are least equipped as a society to handle because grief is too big for some people. And what we do is we run away. We
Yeah.
think, I don't want to say the wrong thing. So I'd rather say nothing than say the wrong thing. And years ago, I learned that I'm always going to say something,
Hmm.
even if what I say is, I don't have the right words. I
Right.
wish I could take away an ounce of your grief. I'm here. You are loved. And it's those statements that came in texts at 2 o'clock in the morning or Facebook messages or notes. It was those things, those tiny tidbits of compassion
Hmm.
and love and empathy. The people who showed up, came to me with compassion, did not come barging in and turn on the lights and say, "Okay, we gotta make you better." They said, "I'm
Right.
gonna sit here with you. I know you're hurting, and I'm not gonna tell you you need to get over it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you that it's okay to grieve." Those people
Yeah.
saved my life.
That's
That's why
really,
I'm still here.
yeah, that's a really important message for people to hear because I know personally that especially, I mean, one of my challenges has been not just disappearing because of not knowing what to say. And I think in hindsight, it's also that empath that the feeling is so strong that being with someone who is going through so much incredible loss and pain. I'm not talking in a professional clinical setting. I'm talking in
Right. Personal.
personal life. Um, it was just too overwhelming for me, and it also stems from when I lost my grandfather when I was 7, and the way it just all went down and the aftermath, it was just overwhelming for me, and it
Right.
really. So I think some of it comes from there, but I've had to work really hard on leaning in, um, and knowing what to say, and so it's really helpful to hear you suggest to all of us what not to say, right? Well, we don't want you to just go away. We don't want anyone to be like, just let's make it better. It's how do we just hang in there with presence? And
So
this, let me say one thing. This
yeah.
reminds me of an animal that has been inspirational. That is very recent. My wife had sent me a Instagram, and this retired thoroughbred, I believe in the UK,
Hmm.
horse ends up sort of volunteering in a hospital. And this horse is so wise and so empathic. They had pictures of the horse just standing nose to nose with a grieving family member and talking about how this horse goes into the rooms of the ill and the dying and just is there with them, and just is with them. And it talked about just the power of presence, the power of not the healing power of presence and not fixing. And I think that's what you're talking about is so key.
It's, I apologize. I wasn't trying to jump
Yeah.
in because I feel so passionate about what you're saying. I it really isn't about fixing. It isn't about and everyone grieves differently, right? So I think that so much of this is about allowing people, giving people the space to grieve in whatever way they need to or want to. Some people may want to go right back to work and some people might not want to talk about it. It's to me, it's the it's just a text.
Hmm.
It's just a, I wish I had words that could make this any easier. I wish I could take away your pain. I want you to know you're loved. I want you to know I'm thinking about you. I have a blogging friend whose daughter passed away unexpectedly about a month and a half ago. I initially wrote her a message, and not only is she dealing with the loss of her daughter, but in the midst of all of that, she is now the caregiver for her three grandchildren. So, and she wrote online for the first time the other day, and I like I just periodically just send the odd message, "Just want you to know I'm thinking about you." She hasn't responded to me. I
Right.
don't expect her to, but I will tell you that my pivotal moment in all of this was I want to say 17 years ago. In our blogging community, there was a mom whose daughter was the same age as my daughter Delaney at the time. I want to say the girls were about 5. Her daughter went into the hospital with what amounted to pneumonia and passed away. And our community did everything they could to come together. And she wrote about it afterwards. And she said, and this is what has stuck with me. She said, at the time we still had answering machines. She
Mm.
said, I'm so grateful to everyone who called and left messages and texted me and reached out. But I will tell you, because and most of you I couldn't respond to, but I will tell you that the loudest noise was everyone who didn't call because it was too hard for them.
Wow.
And that has never gone away for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a
Mm-hmm.
core memory for me. And at the time, I hadn't lost anybody. And since then, anyone who is close to me that experiences anything, I call.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer. And I remember calling a friend of mine whose father had passed away, and she answered the phone and she said, "You're the only person who's called."
Mm.
And I thought,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think everyone, as I reflect on times when I didn't call, which stings looking back, it's, you don't, because the reasons I didn't call because of the feelings, but also not knowing what to say. So that the
right,
message is you don't need to know what to say.
right.
And just saying you don't know what to say, you don't have the words, you're thinking about them, you're sending love. Like, that's all you need to do. You do not have to know what to say.
And I think that you and me, we can all give ourselves grace for the times that we didn't call, um, because we do better when we know better, right? So
Right.
we when you when you understand that we can have permission to just say, "I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the right words," and you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to call me back. Don't add me to your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that you're being thought of and you're loved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And just in a general sense, for many of the things that we're talking about today, um, we don't have to have the answers. We just need to reach out, right? If we're scared, if we're suffering, if we're struggling, we're hurting. For those of us who run higher on the perfection scale, and it's like that the idea of reaching out is like close to like worse than a death of itself. It's
Absolutely.
like we have to drop all that and just reach out for some human connection and help. And that is so courageous and brave to do so.
It's hard sometimes, but
It is hard.
I mean, I will say that asking for help, um, ranks as the bravest
Hmm.
and most painful, but the very best thing I ever
Yeah.
did because
Hmm.
it's led me here,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
Without asking for the help that I needed, I wouldn't be around, and I definitely wouldn't be here, able to visit my kids for SEC games and watching them thrive and live their best lives. And I wouldn't have my ex-husband as one of my best friends, and I wouldn't be marrying this extraordinary man who is truly the love of my life. So, and I wouldn't have the podcast.
Awesome. You wouldn't have a podcast. You
So we wouldn't
said
have met.
we would not have met. You said in the solo episode that I keep quoting here, which so fits with where you are and what you just talked about. I am more me now than I have ever been before.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I feel like I inhabit all of me in a way that I never was able to do before. And that's it's so special. And that I think is where my gratitude overflows because I get to live this life. And I think that so many of us who have a an experience where we weren't sure that we were going to make it through, and that was through no fault except my own, right? It was at my own hands. I can remember people saying to me when I was grieving, "Well, you'll make it cuz you have to." And I thought, "Do I though? Do I?" Because I don't. I don't. And I actually thought that's a choice I have, and no one gets to tell me I have to, but I want to.
Mm-hmm.
I want to. And I want to help other people want to, because the beauty on this side of it is so extraordinary once we can figure out how to make it through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hope.
Hope.
It, it's
There
all
we are,
about
back with our
hope.
word.
It's all about hope.
It's all about
So I'm
hope.
going to, as we wind down here, I'm going to ask you the question you ask everyone on your show. And that is, as you know very well, what does hope mean to you? How do you define hope?
Hope is an anchor of possibility. It is that intangible that tells us we can do anything. Uh, I It's that little thread that we get to hang on to that reminds us we shouldn't ever give up.
Hmm.
I'm I'm grateful that it has been a thread that has made it through my years. It's been what's kept me going, even when I couldn't see it.
Well, hope has come to visit today as well. So thank you for visiting and bringing your messages of hope, of resilience, of growth, of transformation, and of possibility, and gratitude. So much, so much. Um, tell everyone where to find your show, and also your other projects, your coaching,
Oh,
the
yes.
collective. Tell everyone.
So you can find everything that I do on my primary website, which is my name. So it's Danielle Elliott Smith, and it's 2 L's and 2 T's. But then if you look for hopecomestovisit.com, it redirects you to the podcast. The podcast can be found anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's everywhere at this point. And then within Danielle Elliott Smith, I do coaching to help women redefine their relationship with alcohol if they'd like to make any changes at all. And that's under Redefining Sober. And then also, with one of my good friends, I have a coaching program and retreats that we do called Sovereign Collective, which is helping people to find that wildness within and break through to the other side of everything that's been holding them back. So we're actually doing a retreat down in Arkansas this weekend, and I'm really excited about it. It's the first one we're doing together. It's something we've been working on for quite some time. So, um, yeah, it's
Wonderful,
a little bit of
wonderful.
everything right now.
Yeah, you're on fire, aren't you?
You know what? It's so beautiful to feel inspired.
Yeah,
I feel as though I've been building up to all of this for a long time, and I get to be me. And that's the freedom that was promised when I stopped focusing on what I was going to be drinking every day and what I would get done before I started drinking. And I'm in a new stage in my life where so much of it, I am allowed to focus on me and how I can help and what I can do to serve others, because my kids are doing well on their own. So, I mean, Delaney graduates from Ole Miss next year, and Cooper is heading into his second year at Tennessee. So they, I'm relegated to the stands.
yes.
So I just get to cheer for them, and this means it's an opportunity for me to just be as much of service and help as much as I can.
It's inspiring and it's needed. So thank you.
You are a treasure. Thank you so
Hmm.
much for allowing me to be here with you, and thank you again for taking time with me recently. It really has been joyful to continue this conversation.
We are connected.
Absolutely.
Danielle is living proof that a better life exists on the other side with vulnerability, with facing fear, with transparency, and with resilience. We can grow, we can expand, and we can have a life that we could only imagine. Here are 5 key takeaways from our conversation. Number 1, hope is not a concept, it's a lifeline. Danielle's story reminds us that hope is the thread we can hold on to even when we feel like we're unraveling. Number 2, you're not alone in the dark. Sharing our most painful experiences connects us to others because pain becomes bearable when it becomes ours instead of just mine. Number 3, recovery starts with radical honesty. From hiding her drinking to helping others redefine their relationship with alcohol, Danielle shows the healing power of transparency. Number 4, we all grieve differently, so just show up. The best thing we can do for someone who's grieving is not to fix them, but to sit with them quietly and compassionately. You do not need to have the right thing to say. And number 5, you don't have to be happy. You just need peace. Danielle's shift from chasing happiness to cultivating peace offers a powerful reframing of how we define a fulfilling life. That's it for this engaging and inspiring episode. And now, if you have not heard, we are bringing back Sitting Down with Dr. Dan episodes where I answer your listener questions. So bring us your questions. This time, we want to do it a little differently. We want to hear your voice. So please send us an audio file or a video file to podcast@drdanpeters.com so we can play your voice on our podcast and I can answer your question. Your question can be about anything related to our show and living, about purpose, about possibility, about personal growth, or anything else that's on your mind. If you don't want to send your voice in, we still want to hear your question. So you can always DM us on social @Dr. Dan Peters and also email us podcast@drdanpeters.com. As always, let's make this meaningful. Let's keep it real. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being a part of our community and your 5-star reviews. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media @Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.